Right, from a development perspective. Okay, sorry. From a development perspective, there are two ways that developers work. One is work for hire, where a publisher comes to you and they pay you your costs plus 20%. And that's actually very profitable because provided you're good at your job, you can actually produce a lot of games, you can grow your studio, you make your 20%, and it can be very profitable indeed. But it's actually at the other end that it's sexy, and that's when you're writing original IP. And that's certainly what Revolution has done. And it's absolutely brilliant because, as I say, you get the passion of the fans, you know, the press get very excited, and it really is breaking this boundary. It's driving forward a new medium. The problem is, and this is the point that I'm going to be getting onto, so I'm sort of rather deviating here, is that it's actually incredibly difficult as well from a financial perspective. Because what publishers, in the early days, you could sell directly to people, to the public, to your audience, to your consumer. And then throughout the 80s, publishers became very powerful and created this choke point. And because of the requirement to spend vast amounts of marketing money, you had to go through these publishers who slowly screwed down developers. So now, if you want to write an original game, you are required as the developer to self-fund the prototype, which will cost hundreds of thousands of pounds. Once it's proved that actually it's pretty good, you're then required to assign the IP to the publisher, even though they haven't taken any risk in the first place, and then they pay you a 20% royalty. But that 20% royalty is against the costs of goods. So if, for example, a game costs £1 million, that you don't recoup until the publisher has actually earned 5 million. But they will have recouped at about 2 or 3 million, so they recoup a lot quicker. And what I have here, and the reason that this is all screwed up, I'm afraid, is that we didn't test it beforehand, and it's a different version of PowerPoint, which is why things are appearing in the wrong order. So you'll have to forgive the fact that it looks a little bit strange. But basically, this of the pie, this of the £40 price, about £3 goes to the developer. 40% goes to the retailer. This is cost of goods, which go, in the case of PlayStation, it goes to Sony. In the case of Xbox, it goes to Microsoft. And this is what the publisher makes. So as you can see, we get a tiny proportion of the pie. And for many years, that's made it pretty unattractive to actually develop original games. So the emerging opportunities are actually very, very interesting to us. The first one, disintermediation, is cutting out the publisher and the retailer in certain instances. Now, given that we get about 10%, if we can sell directly to the consumer, there is, of course, the marketing cost. There is, of course, the cost of going through websites. But in the case of something like Xbox Live Arcade, which is the Microsoft portal, they will pay a developer 70% of the revenues. So suddenly you're getting 7 times as much. Now, yes, you do have to do the marketing. Yes, there are certain other costs, and it would be naive to say, and yes, because there isn't the marketing, you're probably going to get lower sales. But the opportunity to get 7 times as much is really quite extraordinary. Now, new revenue models, which is actually the whole point of this talk, so I'm sorry that I've got such a long-winded way. Dynamic streaming is a very, very interesting, probably, it stands alone. It's basically where an advertising agency will go to a brand, like in this case McDonald's or Coca-Cola, and they will dynamically stream their brand into a product. And obviously you need to have broadband. And it means that, for a month you can blitz every game that has this particular system with McDonald's or Coca-Cola, and then the next day it'll be changed to Nike or whoever. And that is attractive to advertisers because they can have an enormous hit at one particular time, instead of the risk, because obviously nobody knows whether one particular game will be successful or not. And here's another example of, in a racing game, you actually put the brand onto the back of a lorry. Other systems, other ways of working are product placement. Oh, sorry, this really is the old version of, it's a different version of PowerPoint, which is causing me trouble. Okay, so there was flashing up the fact that in a game called Worms, Red Bull, to get a power-up, the worm would actually drink Red Bull. which obviously reinforces the brand within a game. Then you have sponsorship. And I actually use Coronation Street there because we don't really have an equivalent model that's worked really well. But the way that Coronation Street was sponsored by Cadbury's was so interesting because it didn't actually interfere with the product itself. And one of the things that I think is very exciting is getting towards a model in which you can almost give a game away for free, and on the basis that it's brought to you by this particular sponsor and the goodwill that's then generated. And the final one is something called advergaming. Now, this is the Burger King character, the King, which in the UK, I mean, I certainly got no idea who he was or anything. He is actually deliberately creepy. In America, he has a completely different... he's actually promoted as the slightly creepy king who creeps around stealing your burgers and then presenting you with things. It's all really, really strange. And the interesting thing is that it shows actually how culturally how different they are in America. But this game was written specifically for Burger King and proved enormously popular, particularly in America. One of the games, this is obviously a driving game on Dodgems, but one of the games which looks so weird, you actually sneak around, like in Metal Gear Solid, and then you pop out of a dustbin and you present somebody with a burger. In this country, it's completely mad, it's crazy. But because it reflects the brand in America, it was extraordinarily popular. Very, very interesting. Other revenue models, episodic, the opportunity to do episodic gaming, you're going to get a flash there, yep. And that's where you can actually sell games much cheaper in chunks, and obviously if they're popular, then people will keep buying the episodes. And then finally, we have this microtransactions. And this is amazing. This is a game where you have, I think, about 10, 15 million subscribers in Korea. It's free to play. You have a little character who looks absolutely identical to the little character to the side. You then pay microtransactions to buy a different helmet, to then paint your cart as you want. And each one's quite cheap, costs a couple of dollars. But you know, you're onto tens of dollars to really customize your particular cart. And the genius of this system is that people who can't afford or aren't prepared will play. So you have an enormous community of, as I say, 10 million people. And the people who are inclined to then pay a little bit of money, relatively little, stand out amongst everybody. And it works absolutely brilliantly because it also means that nobody pirates it, because they can play the game for free anyway. We were going to talk about where we're going to be in 5 years' time, but I don't think I will, because I think that's part of the panel. So anyway, this is my sort of very brief introduction to the video games and why we're so interested in brands and sponsorship.